good? Matt Clark here at the new Matt Clark. How are each and every one of you doing on this amazing Sunday? I'm doing great. My girl's doing great. My family's doing great. I hope each and every one of you are doing great through these crazy, chaotic times that we're still living through. We just still going through. If you could please hit that like button, that subscribe button, and that bell notification button so you get all my videos when they're new. If you could share with somebody on social media, help spread the message, help spread the word, that'd be amazing. And there's a PayPal option if you'd like to donate, help support the channel. The link is in the description of all of my videos. So what's up? How are each and every one of you doing on this amazing Sunday? Like I said, I know it's been a while since I've done a video, but that's okay. Life gets busy sometimes. But here I am. So I took a poll the other day and I asked, what video do you guys want? Trans athletes in the Olympics, Bill Cosby being freed, residential schools or other, and residential schools won by a landslide. I was surprised. There's almost 200 votes. I think that this is something that many Canadians feel ashamed of, even though we weren't directly involved. I think that I never really knew the depth. And when I went and I studied and I watched videos and I just read a little bit, it's clear how bad it was. And my girlfriend, who just took a social worker course in college, also took an Indigenous people's studies and learned a lot about residential schools and stuff. And just, it's really sad to see and hear about the things that our country did to people. And once I'm done with this video, you are going to understand at a much greater length if you didn't already. And we're just going to talk about the constant injustice to the native peoples of this country. And it is just fact. So residential schools basically started operating in the 1880s. Although there is history of similar type programs going on to pre-1867. But the government kind of took an all-in approach in the 1880s and fully embraced the residential school program. Now, this program ran all the way till 1996. That's not even that long ago. It was like my first year of high school was 1996. Think about that, man. By the time I'm done telling you about this, you're going to feel ashamed. Not because you personally did it, but because in a country that prides itself on being so woke, so socially aware, and so for social justice, some of the things you're going to hear about are going to surprise you and shock you. And I know it's a long time ago, but it doesn't matter. Clearly, they just found another mass grave of something like 400 or 500 children that was from a residential school. There have been 3,200 found in total so far, or 3,300, but they think that there's as many as 30,000 or more that could possibly be buried. So just think about that. And then you also had the 60s scoop, which basically was a catch-all phrase that just allowed government workers to just kind of come in, CAS or children welfare, whatever it was called back then, to take the children, put them into foster care, and eventually adopt them out to white families. Now, this happened in the US and this happened in Canada. And why did this happen? This, in my opinion, was a total indoctrination. At the time, our country probably had a lot of Christian values. And I think that at the time, that was strict rule and strict law and ran through the government, right? I know you're supposed to separate state from church, but we all know that that doesn't always happen, and especially back then. But the sad part about it is it went on through 1960s, and in the 1950s, this kind of crazy stuff was still happening. So, I don't know, man. It's crazy to me. And even though Canadian government knew that Native children died at a much higher rate in the residential schools than in their own communities, or any children in their own communities, they still justified it.
Indian children in the residential schools die at a much higher rate than in their villages. But this does not justify a change in the policy of this department, which is geared towards a final solution of our Indian problem. Duncan Campbell Scott, Deputy Superintendent of Indian Affairs.
It's an indoctrination trying to strip people's cultures, people's right to religion or practicing whatever their culture is, and just stripping their soul, their character, and everything that they are away from them. When I show you some of the clips, you're going to see throughout this video, some of the clips, the things said by people like Sir John A. Macdonald, who is on our $5 bill.
The great aim of our legislation has been to do away with the tribal system and to assimilate the Indian people in all respects. Sir John A. Macdonald, May 2nd, 1887.
Man, or Edgerton Ryerson. All these people that you hear their names still to this day as if these are good people. And I know that they probably did some good things for the country, but it doesn't matter. Why do people who reflect these kinds of beliefs and stood behind these kinds of policies still get looked at with reverence? I never know. I have no idea. We'll see, right? So, they died at much farther rates than other Canadian children and typically died from fires, suicides, diseases such as tuberculosis, drowning, and accidental causes. And it's funny because in the article, those were the ways of death listed. There was no death by suspicious practices. Clearly, if there's all these mass graves, there was some suspicious deaths, and I'm sure there was many from abuse and many other things. Who knows what was going on behind those closed doors, right? And even the kids that are alive probably never saw the stuff that was happening to the ones who aren't, which is just terrifying, sad, and just horrifying to think about, in my opinion. Now, I think that as a country and as a Canadian people, we do take pride in being kind and in being socially aware and being understanding to people who come from all different kinds of ways of life, all different kinds of culture, but yet it hasn't been made right for these people. Now, I know that a lot of people probably think that it has been, but it hasn't. There's lots of communities to this day that still don't have potable water, that still don't have access to safe transportation from city to city. This is why you have many thousands of indigenous women disappear along the Highway of Tears and across the country, because these things aren't being put in place to protect the indigenous people of our country.
Their education must consist not merely training of the mind, but of a weaning from the habits and feelings of their ancestors, and the acquirements of the language, art, and customs of civilized life. Edgerton Ryerson, 1847 Report for Indian Affairs.
I read about a lot of abuse and a lot of the things that these kids went through. Like, not strappings, but adult beatings, being held by their hair, having their tongue pulled out and clipped just for talking about their culture, trying to reach out to a family member if they saw them at the residential school. Now think about that. Think about going through physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, and then being sent back and having the same thing happen to your kids, and having this as like a cycle and a cycle. What do you think that PTSD is going to do in the long run? Do you think it's going to help, or do you think it's going to create more abuse, more addiction, and more problems because of the psychological breakdown that you went through while going through these things? It's a crazy, deep, sad story. I think because this has kind of been out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people that just really haven't been shown this or haven't been taught this. I think that a lot of people don't really see how big a problem this is and how deep it really goes to the core of the issue across the country for the indigenous people. Like the overrepresentation in prison, in the prairies, I just think it's super obvious, whether female prison, male prison, the overrepresentation of addiction, I think is really obvious. I think that if you take into consideration that this just stopped in 1996, meaning there are lots of generations that are still alive that went through it, and the pain, the trauma, and the abuse that they suffered is still felt to this day. I think it's really easy for us as people to not really understand, and I don't think that we could understand, because I've never personally been stripped away from my family, taken to a different place with some strange people who abused me if I tried to live with my culture or tried to talk about anything from my culture, my past, stripped all of the skills I was taught, hunting, fishing, trapping, just all the learnings of the culture, and everything that goes along with it, stripped. Has never happened to me, so I can't pretend to know what that's like. I've been taken away from life and put in prison, but that was my fault. I made my bed, and that was something that I put myself through. This is much different. This is like being taken to prison when you're a child for doing nothing and changed and brainwashed and indoctrinated in Christian white beliefs. I can understand the frustration and anger. I've met a lot of native dudes over the years in the system that hated my guts, and I never understood why. I always just thought they were racist and they were being unreasonable because they didn't know me. I'm a good dude. But how do they know that? How do they know that? If their parent was in a residential school and experienced direct abuse from a white person, how are they supposed to think any differently? I don't get it. If you look and see how many Aboriginal teen boys and girls are being arrested or just being shunned by the system, I get it. I'd be angry too. I think it took me a lot of understanding and a lot of just kind of putting myself in other people's shoes to kind of understand how deep of an issue it is. And I've experienced my own trauma, my own abuse, but never at the hands of a government that I never put myself there. You understand? Like, I did experience abuse in prison, but I put myself there. It's a much different situation. Obviously, I share my stories with you guys, so you guys don't have to go through these things yourselves. If I could snap my finger and nobody else deals with any of this crap again, that is what I would do. But we don't know if that's a reality, and we know still to this day there's some lingering crap all the way to the top of our government system. You can fund money to ship all over the world, support these people and these people humanitarian-wise, yet people here in our country don't even have potable water. It's really sad. If you could please hit that like button, that subscribe button, and that bell notification button so you get all my videos when they're new. If you could share with somebody on social media, help spread the message, help spread the word, that'd be amazing. And there's a PayPal option if you'd like to donate, help support the channel. The link is in the description of all of my videos. Whether residential schools, whether the highway of tears, whether the overrepresentation of indigenous people in prison in the prairies, whether the 1,100 missing indigenous women across the country, it seems to me like not enough is being done to protect the indigenous people who are from this country naturally. You know, I feel differently about a lot of things since I've done my homework. I never felt badly towards anybody. I just didn't know, I didn't understand how deep it goes. And man, just understanding how personal it is to be stripped of your culture, of your family, and of everything that you stand for, and just broken down and told that you're a waste or you're a savage, and then expected not to be an addict, not to be involved in that stuff when there's no opportunity being provided. I don't get it. It's like an impossible system made for people to fail. you know, and I've been caught up in a system kind of like that, except I broke the law to get myself there. These people didn't, and it breaks my heart. Love each and every one of you at the new Matt Clark. Go watch the video, Stolen Children. It was on YouTube. It was really sad, man. It brought tears to my eyes. And there's lots of other things I'm sure you can watch, and just educate yourself a little bit. Do what you can. And, you know, obviously just shining a light on this is important. And I'm going to do my best to continue to do that. And to anybody who watches my video who has family who experience residential schools or possibly experience residential schools themselves, I'm sorry, man. It's crazy that you had to experience that. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. Love each and every one of you. The new Matt Clark.